On August 16, 2025, while thousands of Americans took to the streets in Washington, D.C., Denver, Los Angeles, and Anchorage to protest President Donald Trump's policies, the president was spotted golfing at his Florida resorts. This stark contrasts citizens rallying against what they perceive as authoritarian governance, while Trump spends taxpayer money at his own properties, underscores a deepening divide in the nation. Compounding this domestic unrest, Trump's recent summit with Russian President Vladimir Putin in Alaska has drawn sharp criticism for its perceived capitulation to Russian interests, particularly regarding Ukraine's sovereignty over Donbass. As economic concerns mount with rising unemployment, surging inflation, and declining consumer confidence reminiscent of the Great Recession, the administration's priorities appear misaligned with the urgent needs of the American people. Across the United States, from the steps of the White House to the streets of Denver, Los Angeles, and Anchorage, Americans are mobilizing in historic numbers to voice their dissent against President Trump's administration. On August 15, 2025, Washington, D.C., witnessed one of the largest single-day protests since Trump's second inauguration, with an estimated 20,000 demonstrators converging on the National Mall. Organized under the banner of the Hands Off movement, these protests targeted not only Trump, but also his close ally, billionaire Elon Musk, who has been accused of wielding undue influence over federal policy through his role as DOJ administrator. The demonstrations, which spanned all 50 states, Canada, and Mexico, involved nearly 600,000 participants globally, according to organizers. In Florida alone, 45 protests were reported, with significant gatherings in West Palm Beach, Naples, Fort Myers, and near Trump's Mar-a-Lago estate. The protesters' grievances are multifaceted, reflecting deep concerns about the erosion of democratic norms. Demonstrators carried Ukrainian flags and Palestinian keffiyehs, signaling solidarity with international causes impacted by Trump's foreign policy. In Washington, D.C., chants of "Trump must go" echoed as crowds marched from DuPont Circle to the White House, decrying what they described as fascist tendencies within the administration. Speakers, including Democratic members of the House of Representatives, condemned Trump's policies as a billionaire power grab aimed at dismantling public services and prioritizing corporate interests. In Denver, protesters targeted Trump's immigration enforcement tactics, specifically the deployment of ICE and Border Patrol agents, which they labeled as a jungle-like force. Videos from these events show crowds confronting federal agents, demanding they get off our streets, in a powerful display of resistance. These protests are not isolated incidents, but part of a broader wave of activism sparked by Trump's actions since his January 20, 2025 inauguration. In Anchorage, Alaskans rallied against Trump's decision to host Putin, with some expressing fears that Russia views Alaska as part of its historical territory, a concern amplified by Putin's foreign minister, Sergei Lavrov, wearing a USSR shirt during the summit. In Los Angeles, demonstrators focused on Trump's domestic policies, including his executive orders on immigration and economic measures like tariffs, which have fueled economic instability. The scale of these protests, 1,200 nationwide, on April 5, 2025, alone marks them as the largest coordinated demonstrations against a sitting president in recent history, surpassing even the Women's March of 2017. While Americans protested, President Trump was notably absent from the national stage, opting instead to spend significant time at his golf resorts in Florida. On August 15, 2025, he was photographed golfing at his Trump International Golf Club in West Palm Beach, a pattern that has drawn intense scrutiny. According to the Trump Golf Tracker, as of June 21, 2025, Trump had spent 38 days golfing out of his 173 days in office, accounting for nearly 22% of his presidency. This figure represents a 37% increase in golf course visits compared to his first term, when he made 428 visits to Trump Organization properties over 4 years, including an estimated 261 rounds of golf. Each trip costs taxpayers approximately $1.4 million, with expenses covering travel, security, and staffing, much of which directly benefits Trump's businesses. Critics argue that Trump's frequent golf outings reflect a disregard for pressing national issues. On April 5, 2025, while over 1,000 hands-off protests took place nationwide, Trump visited 3 of his Florida golf courses, prompting accusations of hiding in a safe space while the country grappled with economic and social turmoil. Posts on X have mocked Trump's priorities, with one user quipping, "Imagine any of us starting a job and taking the first Monday off to golf." Even during his first term, Trump faced criticism for golfing during crises, such as the COVID-19 pandemic, and his second term has intensified these concerns. Ethics watchdog Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington, CREW, noted that Trump's properties have become profit-making centers of power, hosting 19 visits from foreign officials and 49 events by political groups since January 2025, raising questions about conflicts of interest. Trump's defenders, however, argue that he conducts significant business on the golf course. For instance, on February 8, 2025, he played with Senator Lindsey Graham, the Senate Budget Chair, and on March 29, 2025, he hosted Finnish President Alexander Stubb at his Palm Beach club. Supporters, including Fox News commentators, have claimed that most deals are done on the golf course, citing Trump's negotiation of a deportation agreement with Colombia as evidence of his multitasking prowess. Yet these defenses are overshadowed by reports of Trump's alleged cheating at golf, as documented by sports writer Rick Riley in his book Commander-in-Chief, How Golf Explains Trump. Riley details instances of Trump manipulating scores and claiming victories at his own clubs, further undermining his credibility. The most alarming development in recent days is Trump's August 15, 2025, summit with Vladimir Putin in Anchorage, Alaska, which has been widely criticized as a diplomatic failure. The meeting, announced by the Associated Press on August 9, 2025, was intended to address the Russia-Ukraine conflict, but instead became a stage for Putin to assert dominance. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov's appearance in a USSR shirt was perceived as a deliberate provocation, mocking both Trump and the United States. Reports indicate that Trump ordered U.S. troops to get on their knees and roll out the red carpet for Putin, a gesture that critics, including former U.S. Ambassador to Russia Michael McFaul, described as humiliating. The summit culminated in Trump presenting Putin with an American bald eagle desk statue, a gift that was not publicly disclosed until sensitive documents were found at an Anchorage hotel printer. As reported by NPR, the summit's outcomes have raised serious concerns about Trump's alignment with Kremlin interests. Trump has publicly urged Ukraine to cede Donbass, a heavily fortified region it still controls, to Russia, echoing Putin's demand for no ceasefire and the surrender of eastern Ukraine. The Associated Press reported on August 16, 2025, that Trump's stance reverses ceasefire demand, aligning with Putin's position that Ukraine should retain only its language while relinquishing territorial control. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, set to meet Trump at the White House on August 17, 2025, dismissed the summit as producing dead solutions, warning that any peace deal excluding Kyiv would fail. The Telegraph noted that Putin emerged from the meeting feeling he has shown the world he's back where he belongs, while the Kyiv Independent reported that Ukrainians see nothing good from the encounter. Compounding these concerns, data shared by McFaul and analyst Teresa Fallon reveals that Russian attacks on Ukraine have doubled since Trump's inauguration, directly contradicting his campaign promise to end the war on day one. As of August 16, 2025, 61 days into his presidency, the conflict has escalated, with Putin's forces intensifying attacks on innocent Ukrainians during the summit itself. Trump's apparent deference to Putin, coupled with his failure to secure tangible progress, has been labeled by commentators like Helen Kennedy as the art of the kneel, marking one of the most humiliating days in recent American diplomatic history. Domestically, Trump's administration faces mounting economic challenges that have further fueled public discontent. The Wall Street Journal reported that consumer confidence is at its lowest since the Great Recession, with Americans expressing pessimism about the job market and inflation. Data indicates that unemployment is surging, inflation is rising, and consumer spending is contracting, signaling a potential recession. The S&P 500 experienced its largest two-day decline since the 1950s on April 3rd and 4th, 2025, losing 4.6 trillion euros in value following Trump's tariff announcements. These tariffs, which took effect on August 7, 2025, as reported by the Associated Press, have disrupted global trade and exacerbated economic uncertainty. Trump's economic policies, including a GOP-backed tax break and spending cut bill signed into law, have faced significant backlash. A town hall hosted by Republican Congressman Mike Flood in Nebraska on August 4, 2025, saw crowds booing and shouting over him, reflecting public frustration with the administration's economic agenda. Despite Trump's assurances on Truth Social that this is a great time to get rich, richer than ever before, the reality for most Americans is one of financial strain and uncertainty. The combination of tariff-induced market volatility and cuts to public services, such as education funding, has led many to believe that Trump's policies prioritize the wealthy over the working class. Trump's immigration policies, particularly his mass deportation initiatives, have been a lightning rod for criticism. The administration's Operation Tidal Wave, a partnership between ICE and Florida law enforcement, launched on April 21, 2025, resulted in nearly 800 arrests in its first week. Protesters in Denver and other cities have condemned these tactics, likening ICE agents to a Gestapo for their aggressive enforcement. Videos from Denver show crowds chanting against federal agents, demanding they leave public spaces. In Florida, state lawmakers have aligned with Trump's agenda, passing legislation to rename the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America and implementing stringent immigration measures, further polarizing the state. The deployment of National Guard troops armed with military-grade weapons, such as AR-15 equivalents, in Washington, D.C., has heightened fears of authoritarianism. Comparisons have been drawn to authoritarian regimes in Serbia, where President Aleksandar Vucic's security forces have been documented attacking protesters. Critics argue that Trump is building a personal militia to suppress dissent, a tactic reminiscent of leaders like Putin and Kim Jong-un. These actions have galvanized protesters, who see them as evidence of a broader assault on civil liberties. Amid these crises, questions about Trump's health and cognitive capacity have resurfaced. Observers noted during the Alaska summit that Trump appeared unable to walk in a straight line, prompting renewed speculation about his physical and mental fitness. For years, Trump has withheld comprehensive medical records, relying instead on self-authored reports or questionable claims from physicians. His former doctor, Dr. Harold Bornstein, admitted that Trump dictated his own health assessments, including assertions that his golf tournament victories demonstrate his vitality. These claims have been met with skepticism, particularly given reports of Trump's rapid cognitive decline, which commentators have tracked over the past 5 years. The discovery of sensitive documents at an Anchorage hotel printer, potentially containing classified details about the Putin summit, has further eroded trust in Trump's leadership. The incident underscores a pattern of carelessness that critics argue jeopardizes national security. Combined with his refusal to provide transparent health information, these lapses have fueled calls for greater accountability from the administration.